Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today, we document another dream piece. This is the Rocket Red Sparkle Top Les Paul Deluxe. Essentially, the only thing that's special about this guitar comes down to the finish, but this finish is so historical. But first, a little bit of background information. The Les Paul Deluxe was first introduced in 1969. But right before it was introduced, it looked like this. It had two P90 pickups in it when they brought it back in 1968. They pretty much reissued the 1956 style. And in fact, the first couple of ones actually had SG styled necks on them with the crown, but I'll let you check out this video if you want to learn more about that. But in 1969, they started to make a bunch of changes, and that's why a lot of people don't find the Norland era Les Pauls as collectible. So now we go back to the Les Paul Deluxe. It pretty much stayed that way in the gold top format for quite a few years. And the Les Paul Deluxe actually reigned supreme for about 6 years. There was no such thing as a Les Paul standard at this time. If you wanted a Les Paul that wasn't a custom, this is what you got outside of like the recording models. So that's 1969 through 1975, and then the standards come back out, and then the numbers just completely flop. The standard production starts to keep going up after 75. The production of the Deluxes just slowly caps off to about nothing. And it's eventually discontinued in 1985 when the company's bought out by its new ownership. And you can find quite a few different colors on the Les Paul Deluxe, but these sparkle tops are the most collectible Deluxes and the most expensive outside of an original 69. And why exactly is that? It comes down to rarity as well as just how cool these finishes are. These sparkle tops were made from late 1974 until early 1977, and something kind of cool to know about 1974 is that's when Gibson started to introduce some new colors. So that's around the time like when a white Les Paul Custom comes out. So when everything else was just kind of boring earth tones or a gold top, these things really did stand out, and they didn't make that many of these. So the blue sparkle tops, shipping ledgers show from 75 to 77, they only made 231 of those. And the official color is called Basalt Blue Sparkle. You can check out this review and demo right here. That's the color that I prefer, but Rocket Red Sparkle is a vastly more rare guitar. But also keep in mind, we only have shipping ledger dates for 1 year, so that might not actually even be true. But we know there's at least 125 of these things out there, and one of them is actually a lefty. So that's a $15,000 guitar if you can find it. And most people know about the red and blue sparkle tops, but what a lot of people don't know is there's at least 2 other sparkle top colors out there. There's a gold sparkle top, and sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference between a gold sparkle top and a regular gold top. Like sometimes people will list it thinking they have the sparkle top, but no. Now it depends what year your guitar is, what your gold top is going to look like, but here's a 68 reissue. There's no like super big metal flake in here. Here is an example of a sparkle top gold top. And those puppies are really rare. There's probably only like 1 or 2 of those guys out there. And then, I still haven't seen evidence of the green sparkle top, but there is a dealer called A Toy Boy Guitars that's seen at least 4 of them. So I'd be willing to believe it. There's been a few other people that say they've also seen them. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo to share of those guys yet. So in my sparkle top documentation collection, I now only have the hardest ones to get. But there's something else that's kind of interesting about these guys based on the years that they were made. So you can find both Kalamazoo made sparkle tops as well as Nashville made ones if it's one of the later ones. So the Kalamazoo ones are generally the more collectible ones. They sell for the most because of one big reason. You know, it's the original Kalamazoo factory. You get the 50 styled ABR1 bridge, which is drilled directly into the top. And you get a mahogany neck. Now one of the less desirable traits of these guys are the pancake body. So essentially for about 6 years, Gibson toyed with this, where they did 2 pieces of mahogany and a maple center seam to make these bodies up. But if you find a Nashville made one, it depends what year. I mean, you could technically find one that has a mix of all of these specs, but those guys will have a Nashville style bridge, potentially not have the pancake body, which could be a desirable feature, but those guys will have the maple neck. So I guess I could technically grab one of those to document. Maybe I'll get lucky and one of the gold sparkle tops will be that one. But the other reason why these things are so collectible is the fact that they are impossible to find in clean shape that haven't had a headstock repair, nobody swapped out the tuners on ya, or that they haven't been refinished or modded with humbuckers. So to find a surviving example, takes a long time. Like, even if you have 10 grand to spend, you're still gonna have to wait for one of these things to show up. And they'll sell anywhere between the low, like $5,000, all the way up to about $8,000 is the market today. And let me tell you, if you're a collector, you're going to be waiting a long time to find a clean one, because they just do not show up. The perfect condition ones are already in forever home collections. And why do all these things get broken? I mean, look at this finish. I mean, it says it's a Rockstar's guitar built in with all the sparkles. So naturally, people are going to gig these things, bang them into places. I mean, this guy's not a complete survivor of that either, but at least its headstock has never been snapped off. The Rocket Red Sparkle Top Deluxe actually has a history with the guy who owns Guitar Center. This was like his first love of a guitar. He sold his car to go buy it, and he's made many modifications, but Guitar Center actually did a limited re-release of these guitars not that long ago. I think they made 75 of each colors, but those guys are built to 50 specs. But now that we know a little bit about the Sparkle Top Deluxe history, let's go ahead and throw this one on the workbench and take an up-close look at the legendary Rocket Red Sparkle Top Deluxe. It's amazing what an hour and a little bit of elbow grease can do to one of these sparkle tops. I mean, you guys didn't get to see it in this video, but when I had gotten this guitar, you could tell it hadn't been maintained probably for a good 10 years, because even right here, you could see a little area where I was scared that the clear coat was worn off, but it just turned out it needed a nice polish. And if you ever want to know what I use, it's this Virtuoso stuff. It is the best. I mean, there's nothing else that even compares to this. Sadly, it's becoming hard to find that with all the shops shutting down. But you can check out the unboxing episode to see just how much of a difference that made. So the Sparkle Top has definitely come back to life. But let's go ahead and take an inside look of this beauty. So as far as our pickups, they are mini humbuckers. Now this is a later mini humbucker because it has the patent number on it. So does that mean this has been replaced? Potentially. Because what you normally find are these water slide decal versions. But this could also technically be stock, because 75 is kind of a transition year. So our best way to tell if that was replaced, slightly later on is looking inside the control cavity. But does it really matter that much? No, it's still an era correct mini humbucker. It's not like anybody's routed this out for anything. So what you got going on in here, we'll grab a light here so you can see, is a transitional neck tenon. So that means it's basically routed for a long neck tenon, but it doesn't quite extend all the way in there. Sometimes on these guys you can find date stamps at the edge of the neck. But other than that, this is the mounting plate that mini humbuckers use. And if you were to remove these little foams, you'd actually see two other locations where if you wanted to switch this over to a P90 pickup, it'll still fit in the same round with no additional modifications. So that's always an option for somebody, but when it comes to a Sparkle Top Deluxe, you want the mini humbuckers. You can actually see what I was talking about now, those additional holes right there. Now to know if somebody's actually put a P90 in here at one point in time, there would be a large screw hole all the way through the body there to secure it. Because P90s secure right here instead of the mini humbuckers, which secure, similar to a regular humbucker on the outside within this little ring. But everything is definitely looking perfect on this one, no route jobs or anything. As far as our pickup readings go, we get a 6.18 in our neck position. The bridge is 6.16, so those are fairly matched. In the middle, about half that, 3.08. But as far as the bridge, so far I've been lucky with the ones I've been documenting. These are all the Kalamazoo made ones, but I would love to find a Sparkle Top that is from Nashville just so we can document all the differences. But this utilizes the ABR1 bridge. I cleaned this up. It was a little bit grimy looking, but now it looks almost brand new. Which kind of looks good with the Sparkle Top, but you can see the Gibson patent number that's on there. They basically used these from like the late 60s into the early 80s. The main difference will be like the material that the saddles are made of. I guess I probably should have polished up those wheels. It almost looks like a aging mixed match now. And the tailpiece, it's full weight, and it has the casting mark right there. Moving on here, our toggle switch tip. This is not the original switch tip. It came to me with this replaced ambered one, but I happened to look in my parts drawer and I had an exact era correct toggle switch tip that matched the aging of the plastics perfectly, so I went ahead and put that on there. But we'll just get a nice close-up of this finish now. I'm still not as big of a fan of the red Sparkle Tops as compared to the blue Sparkle Tops. I'm a blue guy for life more so than red, but I can definitely appreciate why people like Rocket Red Sparkle now that I've had one in person. So our knobs here are the reflector bonnet style. They've got a nice dark golden color to them. They look really awesome with those really sharp thumb bleeders attached to them, as these usually have. Then underneath the pickguard, I guess I would not shame anybody for leaving the pickguard off, but there has actually been a few touch-ups on this guitar. So when I had purchased it, it said potential overspray in a few areas. So I asked the guy about it, I was like, what exactly does that mean? Because overspray the entire top or the back, you're gonna really hurt the value. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know. So I kind of took a gamble on this, and what that ended up meaning is there's a few drop fills on this guitar. So right here it got dinged up, so somebody touched it up. There were also a few areas right here, and it looks like they touched up the area where the pickguard kind of impressed the finish. So that's nothing in my book. I was kind of scared to see what I would find on this guitar, but I can live with that. But here's our original pickguard here, nice and creamy. But these guys are your typical Les Paul construction, maple top with a mahogany body. Usually in this era it's a 3-piece top, but there's not really a way to know for sure on this one. I could maybe do that light reflecting trick, but honestly I don't care that much to do that. So moving on from the body of the guitar, we go to the neck. So this is just a regular rosewood fretboard. The frets definitely needed a good shining here. We definitely needed new strings. They were all rusted over, but take a look at the nice streakiness of this board. The only thing that's really pertinent to let you guys know about is it looks like you have a little bit of fingernail wear right here. Nothing too crazy, but it definitely made the wood look a little bit darker in those areas. But what's super impressive about this example is usually the frets are all worn flat. These guitars don't play that well, but this one does not appear to have been played that much, or it was played by somebody that had a very light hand. That was the one bad thing about my blue sparkle top, is it had been played so much it wasn't the most comfortable guitar to play. Fun story about that one, it actually ended up with Mike Ness of Social Distortion, and he had it refretted and it's out on the road with him today. So even though that's still a dream guitar of mine, I am super happy where it ended up. The next replaced part on this guy is just the nut. This originally would have had a bone nut, but at least it looks like it was done professionally. With only a little bit more than 100 of these in existence, even less without headstock repairs, I mean, there's probably only a handful that haven't been broken or repaired or modified in some way. You can't be too picky of a collector when it comes to these guys and replaced parts. But our nut width on this guy is 1.69 inches, and by the 12th, 2.04. First fret neck depth, 0.83, by the 12th, 0.98. Now, it always seems like it gets super beefy, but what's happening is you're starting to get to the heel, because it's a pretty nice rounded C neck shape profile, I would say. And honestly, I would say that this one is just a hair thicker feeling than my last sparkle top. That one was like a really super slim neck. I mean, this one's still what I would consider slim, but just not quite as slim. Now moving on to the face of this headstock. Polishing this guy up really helps you see all that finish checking that's occurred on this one. The headstock is also where the biggest sin of this guitar is. This was almost not a survivor. Luckily, it did survive whatever impact it hit, which is a little sliver off the side of the headstock got chipped off. It's not too bad. A professional luthier could touch that up, put another little splice of mahogany on there, and make it look almost invisible. Luckily, it's not a huge chunk. You still have your open book headstock shape. It doesn't look too much different. But thank goodness, nobody has touched the original tuners. Why it's such a big deal is this uses the vintage style tuners. And they're a really cool double line, double ring Kluson style. But since these have the push-in bushings, when people would replace these with Grovers or any other style of tuner, they would actually have to ream the headstock larger to fit those tuners. And whenever you go back to restore these to original, what would happen is you'll have a larger impression, because all those other ones use a screw-in style bushing and then they have a washer. So that would leave an impression. And that ruins the whole vibe of the guitar. And unfortunately, my last blue sparkle top, somebody had done that. They just put regular modern day Klusons in there. So seeing one like this is just absolutely beautiful to me. As you can see, this one has never been modified. There has never been any other tuners on this guy. So that's the three big sins of these guys. Replace tuners that require reaming, getting routed out for humbuckers or any other type of pickup. Sometimes people even refinish these because they were just a little bit too flamboyant for them. And of course, finding one that hasn't had the headstock snapped off. And the other thing about these guys is you want the original Les Paul Deluxe truss rod cover, because I just love the font of these old early 70s ones. Now moving on to the back. Good luck finding one of these things that doesn't have some sort of buckle rash. At least this one didn't really break the finish. It just kind of impressed into it, and that's what gives you that kind of yellowish hue. The only areas of broken finish are right down here along the edge where a strap was kind of like rubbing against it for a while. But now the moment of truth inside this cavity. The original seller to this said he couldn't see any of the pot codes, so I did a little bit of cleaning. because these things usually have some sort of oxidization on top of them. And it looks like this one dates to 1974. As you can see, the 13774, and then you can just barely see it right there again. So 13774, and it almost looks like a 5 or a 3, and then maybe a 2. So that might actually be the 52nd week, which would be the very last week in 74. So definitely a late 74, early 75 example. But now, what's our pickup situation? So to me, it looks like the bridge pickup has been in and out. So that could just be an error correct replacement. And the neck pickup actually looks pretty good. So there's definitely been other pickups in here. So I'm going to say that neck pickup has definitely been replaced with a later 70s one. But it looks like all the other electronics in here are original. Take a moment to look around the body. This is in the pancake body era construction. I like how the wood has a natural color variation right there. That's pretty cool. And you still have your original plastic output jack plate. It's pretty common for those things to crack, so that's nice to see. There's no separation to the pancake body. Looks like a little bit of stand rash right there. There's that area that was worn by the strap at one point in time. And the strap buttons themselves have also been replaced. When I got the guitar, this is what was there. I think there might be one original button right here, but the screws have definitely been replaced, and this one's not original. So I just put a brand new set of Gibsons on there. But continuing around the rest of the sides, this one's actually in pretty good shape. But you do have some finish checking around the neck heel. That's pretty common. I mean, this did experience some sort of trauma to the headstock, but luckily it doesn't look like the neck has ever been snapped off or anything. But in the right lighting, you can definitely see a bunch of vertical finish checking on this neck. Especially up here around the headstock and the tuners, it's not always 100% evident. And you're probably wondering, is that like a large crack line right here? No, that's actually a wood grain line just running up and down the entire neck. You can actually see that on quite a few of these Sparkle Top Deluxes, so you know that's the original neck and everything. And that characteristic early mid-70s heel joint. And right here, you can see the volute and the original tuners, as well as our serial number up here. 305437. And you're probably wondering why there's no Made in USA stamp. Sometimes that does happen. They do make it out of the factory without them. So that's kind of an anomaly feature, but definitely not that uncommon. And lastly here, this guy weighs 9 pounds 1.5 ounces, which is actually pretty good for a 70s Les Paul Deluxe. Sometimes these things can be 10 pounds. So let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how the red Sparkle Top Deluxe sounds. How's the tone on this guy? I've got to be honest here. I've only had, I think, 3 Les Paul Deluxes, and this is the first one that's really bonded with me. It definitely sounds fantastic. So the bridge is really bright, but that can be good for some stuff. And the neck pickup, it's still fat and juicy, but it doesn't get muddy. Even on your clean tones here. It honestly kind of sounds like a Telecaster in a way, especially that bridge pickup. So what are my final thoughts on the Sparkle Top Les Paul Deluxe? Are they worth the huge premium? To me, as a collector, it's worth it to have one of these because you know you're one of the very lucky few to have a Survivor Sparkle Top. These are just so ridiculously collectible, I love them. But based on just the merits of the guitar, no. Any Les Paul Deluxe is going to sound pretty much the same, but it won't have the super rarity and bragging rights as one of these guys. So even though now I've actually seen a red Sparkle Top in person, I still prefer the blue even though it's technically less rare. It's just a color that speaks to me better. But I can definitely understand the appeal of this red Sparkle Top now that I've seen one a little bit better. Red Sparkle Top is definitely harder to photograph to get all those beautiful sparkles in it. But the only thing left to do now is to check this one out under Blacklight. Under Blacklight, you can see this thing glows like a green alien. After reviewing all those brand new guitars, you know, it's nice to go back to the vintage rare stuff because it glows a lot more. Even your knobs are glowing like crazy on this guy. I mean, you can even see that the binding's glowing a little bit on this one, even some a little bit on the inlays. The headstock is looking perfect. That is what you want to see. Even your tuner tips are glowing pretty good, and there have been no breaks, cracks, or repairs on this guy. Looking over the rest of the body here, everything's looking pretty nice. You got, once again, a little bit of buckle rash back here, and a few small areas around the edges that aren't 100% perfect due to the strap. But as far as these Sparkle Top Deluxes go, this one doesn't have too many sins that couldn't be fixed up. Oh, and just in case you're curious, the case does blacklight. It's kind of cool. It kind of turns into an orange interior. I just thought I'd show you guys those quick touch-up marks that were right there. Definitely could have been a lot worse than it was. The Sparkle Top unfortunately got separated from its original case. When I first got it, it had like some crappy SKB hardshell case, so I went ahead and gave it an era correct case. All the latches and handles are present and functioning. I don't personally like these cases. They don't offer a lot of protection. I only wish I had a purple case to give this one because that's like the correct interior for one of this age, but this is a slightly later 70s case. But I put some of those extra parts in here. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this delicious rocket red Sparkle Les Paul Deluxe, it's actually already been spoken for. I had listed it on Reverb and it sold in 20 minutes. So I think that shows you guys how rare these ones are. But thank you Troglodytes for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.